Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership Heart podcast. And today I am super thrilled to have Carla Fox on. Carla has been kind of in the stratosphere of social media with me and following me and like doing kinds of comments and all those things. And so we got on a phone call and just got to know each other. And I just love her spirit. And I felt like, oh my gosh, what an epitome of leadership with heart in both the mom space and in the professional space. I loved her journey, the way she owned her journey. So that's why you're here, Carla. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited and very happy to be here. So thanks, Heather.
So tell everybody where you are right now in your leadership journey anyway.
So right now I am the Chief Financial Officer for the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. I'm here in Kamloops. I've been in this role for almost 2 years, so fairly new. But it's definitely a change, transformation role. It's definitely feeding my passions. You strive, I think, through your career to kind of find something that really ignites the passion of what you do so that you feel like you're really adding value. And that's kind of the job I walked into here. A lot of transformation and change required in the department. So I've just been really focused on the day-to-day finance operations, as well as trying to really empower the team and make them feel part of an organization that appreciates them and the value that they add. So that really goes back to me being able to kind of learn and listen and help them do their jobs. So
Now, where did you say you were from? What was the name of that town?
Kamloops, British Columbia.
Okay. I was like, I'd never heard of that town. I was like, wait, what? Kamloops. I love that.
I know everybody knows Vancouver,
Yeah.
usually in Victoria, and then that's about it.
Ah,
We're about 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours away from Vancouver, more to
oh,
the
very
interior.
nice. Very nice. I like my show, if you would go back and look at all the different interviews, it is extremely diverse. I mean, I have people from just so many different walks of life and different areas and different positions and it's just so cool to kind of talk and it's I see it as my job to kind of synthesize messages and obviously in the learnings for everybody to hear. But also just like show the commonalities between it doesn't matter like where you are geographically, it doesn't matter where you are, in an organization or what role or industry, whatever. There's so many similarities and overlaps when we look at this leadership with heart and just leading generally. So I appreciate your own here and your background as well. I am curious to know what would people that like look to you for guidance every day, those maybe that report to you, what would they say about your leadership style? How would they describe it in their words?
I appreciate the question. I was kind of reflecting on it and I thought, why not ask them? It's probably better because I've been here 2 years seems like a long time, but it's been very busy. There's a lot of change, and I haven't done a 360 questionnaire review to kind of get that feedback. So I kind of put it out there and looked at the common themes. And of course, to be fair, I didn't ask them to give me any, negative feedback. So a lot of it was positive, and it really was fulfilling to hear the information. So one of the things I think I really take pride in is being collaborative and communication. And I think in finance, sometimes we get stuck really in the numbers and the work. So part of what I've really tried to do and focus on through my career is pay attention to the people. Without the people in the team, the work, it could be suffering because your team isn't happy. Anyway, so I think that they have given me common feedback where they said they see me as a visionary leader. I'm empowering and collaborative and strong communication.
Well, those are very good things to be.
Well, it feels good. And it feels like when you're striving to try and achieve something and to hear that feedback that you're actually accomplishing it is really rewarding.
And to be that also in the finance department, I hate, we never like to be pigeonholed. We don't like, the generalizations and stereotypes. But when you think about kind of tech or finance or something, oftentimes you may not think of that kind of softer side of leadership or some of the things as you described yourself. So, which is what stood out to me as I spoke to you before. And I thought, oh, let's have you on. It's kind of cool to see. It's like it takes all people in all different areas to really be someone who still shows up with that kind of focus on people, the focus on listening, empowering, all the things that we talk about in caring leadership. So kudos to you for for going out there and also being brave because you don't know what you would have gotten. You could have gotten something that said, oh, and you could be this and you could be more of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that's important feedback as well. But I think some of the starting as a young leader in finance, some of what you were saying, you know, the expectations around what that leader looked like, having those what they call softer skills wasn't really a strength when I first started. But I tried to hold on to that and I tried to kind of focus as that was more of a unique strength for me. And I guess being extroverted as an accountant also helped. So I think
Exactly.
that I probably got some roles because of being extroverted and focusing on those interpersonal parts of people.
Yeah, that's amazing. When you think about kind of some of your journey, and I want to peel that back a little bit too, kind of because the journey wasn't necessarily linear and you had to do some redirection and you had to think of yourself differently. Let's just take people through a little bit of that journey as we think about how you got to where you're at today and maybe where there were some of the crossroads that you were at, like, you know, decisions you had to make when you got to where you were at a couple of years ago, you know, where maybe how you saw yourself previous to that and some of the actions you took to kind of get where you're at now as the CFO of the school district.
I think there's three kind of pivotal moments that stand out for me. When I first got a senior leadership role, I was working for a mill and I walked into a position pretty young, pretty early on, not a lot of experience, and an advancement came up. And I wasn't really sure I was ready for that advancement. But I heard some of my mentors and my family in my mind saying, you know, never hold yourself back from an opportunity. And I think it was my brother who always said, it doesn't matter as long as you're willing to learn, you can take on anything. And I thought, okay, if they're willing to train me, I can do this. So I applied for a Woodlands accountant position and I ended up getting the position. And you want to talk about imposter syndrome. I just thought, wow, I can't believe they gave this position to me. And it really empowered me to believe in myself. And I had a good mentor who worked with me and taught me, was willing to stand by me as I learned. And I grew really quickly in that role. And I proved to myself that, you know, you look at these other organizations, and I appreciate the fact you say you've interviewed and talked to people all over and we're all very similar. And sometimes, you know, I was a farm girl. I didn't know what I could achieve. I didn't really know what my dreams were. I was just really driven and I knew I wanted to achieve. And to start to feel like I was one of them. And it seems silly to say that, but it was like, wow, I don't know if that's achievable. And then all of a sudden I was in this place where I'm like, I actually am the leader, the person that I was looking at, looking up to, and to see that. So that was really exciting. And I think I didn't have my certification at that time. And then I got another role when we moved into local government and municipal finance, which was a world I didn't even know existed. And I had a really great boss. Oh, she was just so empowering. And she did the role before, and that could lead to difficult situations or conversations. But she was really empowering, let me do my thing. I love to present. And I found this world, diverse world, I guess, where I could do lots of different things other than just finance. I could present to a board, I could put together reports, and it was really bringing in a lot of what I saw my strengths are. So I found that empowering. And then I went and applied for my certification, my certified management accountant certification as an adult with kids. And it was really hard, but I did it. And I did it because I thought if I want to move up in this world, people have to see me with that certification so that, you know, I already believed in myself. I had already had the position. So I didn't necessarily need the certification, but I wanted that for myself. And it was valuable and empowering. So I think those two are really positive. And then the number three kind of example I had was a bit more negative. So
Please do share.
okay. So, you know, all of a sudden you feel like you're achieving and you're at the top of your game. And I often had to move jobs because I was following my husband around as he moved to different places for his role. So I would leave my role that I loved and I would go and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to get another role that I love. And I went into a community and feeling pretty good about where I've got to in my career. And I went into a role and I said, you know, I know there's not my direct position here, but I have a lot of municipal training. Put me to work. So they put me to work, and shortly after that, there started to be a lot of change in leadership. And I moved through roles. I moved from one role, they advanced me to another, and then I hit a CFO role there. So I kind of got what I was striving for. But in the change and turmoil, I took on a role of responsibility to kind of hold the organization together. And in doing that, I lost myself a bit. It was, you know, there was a lot of stress in the world, COVID going on. There was a lot to achieve in organizations through that time in health and safety. And I think that I felt a responsibility to the people that I worked with in the organization that really actually probably went beyond what I was responsible for. And I ended up taking on a lot of stress on myself, which I dealt with a lot of stress before and high pace, and I could do lots of different things. I think part of the reason I feel like I've been able to achieve a lot is resilience. Just been able to be very resilient through lots of stressful situations. And there was a point in time where I thought I can no longer bring my best self to work. And I lost myself a bit in there. And I think when you're in a pressure cooker, you really learn a lot about yourself. So I did have to really change my focus from this isn't as much negative as it is a really good learning for me, that there's always, and I'm a continuous learner, I do like that, but I had much more to learn than I think I thought at that time about myself in those situations, and to set better boundaries for myself. And, you know, you lose some friends through that, and you stand alone on a hill, and there's a lot of negativity that comes from that, but also a lot of learning.
And so then how did you kind of were there some triggers for you that made you go, yeah, this isn't going to work, or like I have to transition to something different, or I need to look at things differently, whatever it might be?
I think when you're under that amount of stress and you're reacting in a way you wouldn't necessarily react in certain situations as a professional, people that don't know you judge you. And I think when the people around me started kind of changing their perspective of how they thought I was within that environment, they didn't get to know the situation or the background, or you don't get to share all those details. So they just see what you're portraying on the outside. And that brought with it a lot of judgment. And I think that even though it might have been unfair, they didn't know what was going on for me. So they were seeing just the outside of what was happening from that pressure cooker. And for me, that just was a realization that as much as you want people to understand, they only see it from their perspective. And you have to make decisions for yourself that are sometimes hard and seem impossible. And I think there's probably a point in time about a year and a half before that I should have walked away. But I took the fight on, and you know, it took me a while to get my strength and my confidence back from that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting how I'm writing this book now on self-leadership. And that was one of the reasons why I want to get you back on here, because I felt like there's so many angles and ways to look at you as a person and how you've gotten to where you're at and the journey you're on just now, even as a mother, and thinking that through, like how you make these very definitive and intentional choices to kind of not necessarily remove negativity or act in a rah-rah sense, because life happens and it gets us down, as you just described, and maybe even like shakes our own foundation, shakes our confidence. But it's this concept of getting back on course, with this realization of, I can only do this for so long. I need to kind of get back on course, the course that I put forward for myself, not letting other people define what this journey is going to look like, but saying, like, I'm going to go get the certification. I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to do this. There's so many different things that you just talked about that were super intentional. They weren't very accidental at all. Right. And that's, I think, what strong self-leadership is about, is in what ways am I being intentional? And the intentionality could also be, in what ways am I allowing myself to feel scared, disappointed, sad, whatever those emotions might be, in what ways am I allowing that to happen? And at the same time, at what point am I also allowing myself or telling myself, okay, I'm done now? Like part of being human is recognizing it, and part of being human is moving on. And I love that part of just that level of intentionality that you show in this entire journey. I'm sure it was not an easy one. Knowing already what I know of you now, your kind of drive to succeed, to kind of keep moving forward, to be better, to like uplift yourself, to be uplift people, to be positive and minded and how you represent yourself. And then to say, oh, I may have been beaten a tiny bit here.
Absolutely. It didn't at that point in time feel like a success. And I had to look back and I had to think about all the things that I was able to change and influence and the positivity that I was, just because that negative experience still didn't take away from all that stuff that I was able to achieve, and then build off that and get myself back to you actually are good at what you do and you should feel good about that, and you like to lead. Why feel bad about that? You like to empower people, and you might take on too much responsibility where that is, but help set better boundaries and still try and achieve what, I want to check out of the world, just actually adding value and making the world a better place. So, and that is really true to me, that's something inside that I want to achieve that goes beyond just the job.
Yes, I always talk about kind of focusing on a mission that is bigger than yourself. So that's really one of the main ways to get past tough circumstances, to have that mission that's so big that little derailments, because they are a little in the big picture, don't cause you just stop completely in your tracks and just be done. Be done with trying to move forward progress. It's the mission is just so it's in your gut. And once we land on that, it makes it easier for us to focus forward, which I appreciate about you and just again, the story and the circumstances that you found yourself in, and even like I said, some of the tough stuff that you find yourself in today. I mean, it's just real obvious to me that you try to live that. Now, the other thing that's interesting to me that I see in you and that I sense in you is this feeling of not only self-confidence and like your abilities, or like that you're coachable and trainable, that you will learn the things you need to in order to get to the next thing you want to get to, but also this sense of like worth as a person. So I am curious to know did that come from a certain place? I heard you say earlier about family members and what they would tell you. Do you think just like as a child, that was where it started for you? Like your parents kind of just embedded that in you, that you are, worthy, that you are amazing, I'm just curious to know where that came from.
I was reflecting on that when I was preparing for our talk today, and I don't know if there's one point in time. I kind of look back and I think, where do I think it started, where I felt that bit of confidence? I'm not overly sure. So I grew up on a farm. A lot of my family members were uneducated. My brother and sister, 15 and 18 years older than me, and I was younger. I had to spend a lot of time on my own. My mom ended up being a single parent. We had a farm. She went off to work. I stayed at home by myself a lot. I was very creative in my mind. And then at 12, my mom passed away from cancer. And I went and lived with my brother and his family and his 3 kids. And I think it was even before that happened. At that point, of course, you can make different choices as you're growing up, and they can be positive or negative. And I always kind of felt like there's my mom looking down on me, and rather than being sad or making my life horrible, I need to make her proud. And I'm going to make her proud of the life that I lead and choose. So there's definitely a drive there for me to achieve. From young, I was given a lot of leeway to just go out and explore and do my own thing. And I think maybe I gained independence and strength from just doing those sorts of things. And I say independent, and my family would giggle because I actually don't like being alone that long. So I'm independent in a lot of ways, but I like to be surrounded with my people. So I don't know, and lots of adversity has happened with my children's health and different aspects throughout my life that have been really challenging, losing my sister, and you could have made a different choice, and you just have to find the strength within to bounce back. I think the biggest part for myself is not giving too much of myself away. I like to help others so much that, you end up sometimes depleting yourself. And my husband's helped me with that and setting good boundaries. But yeah, when bad things happen, I'm down for a day or two, and then it's get back up and let's start moving. And I think the lifestyle that I was given as a child and the strength I needed to find, and some of that might not be healthy. Some of that might be, fight or flight. I
Yes.
do think about that sometimes, where am I coming from a place of just trying to survive,
Hmm.
and then really taking time for myself. It's probably more of a challenge to make sure I'm healthy. And
Yes. Yep. Thank you for that. I have a lot of that kind of fight or flight background as well. And I do think that those people who have gone through trauma one way, shape, or form early on, you're right. They could go, middle, left, right. And you just don't know where you're gonna be. And you kind of do wonders, like, is it like strength of character? Is it just I'm a faith-based person, so I'm kind of like, is this like God's will? Like what I'm always like, what's happening? Why did I turn out this way when this person took the road this way, maybe with very similar circumstances? And so I think that does develop this sense of it's confidence, but it's almost like purpose. It's like your purpose becomes so strong. Like with you, it's like, I want to make sure my mom is proud of me. And that purpose is just really big. And then in the end, it got bigger, and it was like, now I want to make sure I can really like leave my stamp on the world and make it a better place. And when it gets that big, it's like, who in the heck could sit down very long after a mission like that? Right?
it does, when you say purpose, that definitely feels stronger than confidence. Because sometimes like I feel like my confidence is shaken. And you just bring yourself back to center that my purpose is bigger than this. And I do feel God's presence. And especially with my son's recent surgery, having to find faith and belief in something that's bigger. It's really important. It's important for that end goal, I think, and for all of the people around us. So
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think there's just really no way around that topic, is there? I mean, I broach it here and there with like different guests, depending on which guests are on here, that are kind of strong faith-based kind of people. And when I think about myself and my journey and my evolution too, it may be a little hard to be around me if you don't have some level of faith. It's because I remember the last, well, not the last, the book before this one, so the Art of Caring Leadership book. I remember one of the readers from the publisher would get a reader. They have a few different people read it in advance so that they can give you feedback and you can make changes to it. And I remember one person's perspective was, oh, I feel like your words are a bit like spiritual or religious in nature, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And I thought to myself, gosh, first I was like, should I change that? First, and the second I was like, oh gosh, I'm sorry that you may not be able to read any more of my books because I'm always going to be speaking this way or being this person. I do think the faith, when we think about those who come through trauma, in order to remain less shakable, we do have to have that strong faith foundation. I mean, I think there's just no way around it. We can try to fake the funk, but from long-term success, having that faith foundation is pretty pivotal.
absolutely. And
Right.
I think, anxiety, when you start to, especially when things happen with your kids and family, when you start to come up with what's going to happen in the future and you're guessing essentially and torturing yourself over and over, it's so important. And I've had mentors and family members, one of my cousins really strong in faith and making sure I'm always reminded that that's there to lean on. And I haven't always been the best at keeping up with that. But with everything that's gone on for me, I have to find strength in something that's bigger than me. So
Yes.
that's what I've kind of held on to. And it's interesting through all of this stuff that I've done, I do feel a strong sense of purpose in everything that I'm doing. So
Mm.
hopefully
I love it.
that's helping, and hopefully that's coming through in the leader that I'm trying to be.
Oh, I love that I'm trying to be. I love that. I love it so much because it's embedded in that word try is an acknowledgement that this is progress, not perfection.
Yeah,
And that's what you're focusing on. How do I just get better every day?
I have a little sign in my office that says perfectly imperfect. And
Mm.
that's what I'm looking for.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I think again, that still embeds that whole self-worth, that whole self-esteem, that confidence of just like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good in and of myself. I'm good.
Yeah, well, and we need to be able to make mistakes and learn and grow, and the people around you have to trust and feel safe in that. And I find that's made a better culture and a better team. So those are the things, you know, we all have a job to do and we're here, but we have life and purpose behind that. And why are we all here? So
Mm.
that's what I try and focus on and build with my team, make sure they have the right tools to do their job. And I
Awesome.
think it's funny, sometimes people, I don't stick to one leadership style. I just kind of adjust to what I think I need to do in life. But people have said, oh, I'm a servant leader. And yet they've never once asked their staff what they need. And I'm thinking, how are you a servant leader? You know, you
Mhm.
haven't really talked to your people about what they need from you, but I do try and work for my team and make sure that they have what they need.
Hope you all are listening to this. This is some good stuff. And it ain't from the President of the United States either. It's from someone who's in British Columbia, just so you know, working for a regional district. But boy, those concepts of trying, progress versus perfection. And if we are there to serve, we should be then asking, what can I do from you and for you? And then we are there to work for our people equally as whatever they're doing on a day-to-day basis. How do we remove obstacles and barriers for them? So very good points to be made there. So I'm curious to know, now we're at the point where is there something you want to ask me? Anything you'd like to ask me is like, now you're like the podcast host. You get to ask me anything. What would you like to ask me?
I think I often wonder and I ask myself, so would you think that being an authentic leader involves sharing parts of your personal life with the people that you work with? Because often I think, oh, I've shared too much. And there's got to be a line there. But for myself to be authentic, in order for people to relate to me, I feel I need to share. And sometimes I feel maybe I've shared too much. Would you say that there's a line?
Oh boy, I'm going to tell you, it's a line that's invisible for sure. Like it's not one, it's a moving line. It's not the same for everybody. It's not the same for every team or every leader. That's why I love that's why when I write these books called The Art of, it's because that it's this idea of everybody has their own unique brushstrokes. They're going to show up in the way that they need to. I'm going to give you an example. So I was working at this organization. This has been like about 15 years ago, and I went in and I had a small team that was reporting to me. And I want to say probably within a month or something, I shared something with them. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't overly personal, but it was still personal. I don't remember what it was. And they said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you shared that. We had a manager we reported to for 5 years, and we didn't know the last year of him being here, he had gotten divorced. And we had no clue. Like we could have been there to support him through that process, but because he never let us know and we didn't know until he was leaving that he had been divorced for a year, we kind of felt a little like betrayed in a way because we didn't really know him. And so I'm going to lean on the side of selective vulnerability. I'm going to lean on the side of definitely sharing. And I would say this, like, it's not helpful, going into the work crying every day because, something happened with you and your husband. It's not helpful. I had one of my children, she had this teacher who would just like would come in and would be just so upset and would be crying. And my daughter would leave school and she was maybe like in sixth, seventh grade. So it wasn't like she was two. But she would go in and she would come home like so confused and be like, Mom, yeah, she was crying again. Like this particular teacher, she was crying again, like something got her upset or something. And it was like learning some emotional self-regulation, that self-control is still very important. And at the same time, you can say like today it just hasn't been a great day. So I'm going to try my hardest to give you this energy, but it's been a little bit of a tough day today, just so you all know. Like you can go just that far. You don't have to go into all the details, or you could say, yeah, just a little tough day. My child was having a hard time this morning, and whatever the child's name, like, David was having a hard time this morning. So it's hard to get him out the door. And so it threw me off a little bit. So if I'm a little slower with you today, just, bear with me. I promise I'll try to cheer up or whatever it is. And so at least then it kind of opens the door so that they go, well, what was happening with David? That you could share more, but just like dumping on people is not what you want, because you want them to leave. You want them to see you as, as someone who's competent, someone who can regulate your emotions, can kind of stand in your own shoes. They want to feel confident in your ability to lead if you are in that kind of manager role. But I still think it's important to open up pieces. And I think only you are going to know what's a little too far. I would say this: ask yourself whether the thing that you share with them brings them closer to you or kind of repels them. Does that thing you share with them help them understand their role or their connection to you, or does it muddy it a bit? And I think those are some of the things you can ask yourself to decide if this is what I should share, if I should share this or not.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent.
And by the way, that's not because I'm some sage person. That's because of experience.
Yeah.
An experience of oversharing and realizing what's the selective vulnerability place for me and the groups I work with, right?
Absolutely.
So, because I think it's important. Like sometimes I'll be like, I'll run real fast, and we have a really small team here, and I'll tell them, by the way, FYI, I had let's say I had something that was a doctor's appointment, and there was something that was concerning. And so let's say I'm on a call with them, and now they feel like I'm being super distant, which is unlike Heather, or I'm being really quiet, or I'm being whatever. And then they'll go, "Are you okay?" And if I don't say at least a portion of what's happening, then it's kind of like, well, are we a team after all? Or are we just distant colleagues who don't really know or care for one another? So just some examples.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do use that because I mean, you can't fake when something big's going on for you. So I think it's important, but having that boundary and definitely how they're receiving that. Is it repelling? That definitely resonates.
Well, I appreciate that. That was an amazing question. I had anybody ask me that, and I think it's something good to ponder. I wish I always have answers to the questions, and I don't. Sometimes I'm like, I can't even tell you that. But I would say in this one, the line is the line you draw. It can be invisible for most. So okay, for those who are listening now, who could be kind of at they could be at a place where maybe they aren't in a manager role, maybe they are, and they're trying to figure out, how do I kind of move past some obstacles or change in front of me? How do I face it? Just what might be a couple words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom you'd lead them with today?
I think that I've never looked as failure as the end. And I don't actually even use the word failure for me. So when something doesn't go right, or the result isn't what I wanted, resiliency has definitely saved me. I think my ability to recover from hardships, and still see a positive future and strive for what I think my dreams are and my purpose outweighs any of that, because I think we're human and we do make mistakes. We don't always make the right choices. So it becomes a practice. And in practice, sometimes things don't go the right way. So you got to try the other way. And that's why I think even with my team, I say, let's be perfectly imperfect, not perfect, because you're always setting an expectation that you're going to let yourself down. I'm trying to feel success. So I can feel success even if I don't achieve what I want. I'm able to find that silver lining, and I think that people should focus more on the positive parts of the outcome from whatever that is for them, and keep it real, be authentic, share parts of yourself so people can see who you are. I think that's really important. That's been really important to me, and I think that's actually been part of my success, or what I feel my success has been, is that people can relate to me. And you don't have to be the leader to lead. You don't have to be the leader to influence. I was influencing change and my workplace before I ever held the title as a leader. So those would be kind of the tidbits of sharing, I guess.
So good. So good. I know that the title thing is just not required. That you're right. The level of influence, it does require a level of intentionality and purpose. And you do have to have this belief in yourself. And sometimes that belief is shaken, and you do need to have that support system around you to make sure that belief stays intact. People that help you get better kind of can call you on the carpet, at the same time make sure that the people are there for you to support you and to continue to reinstate or I guess commit inside of you this idea that you are valuable in and of yourself, that you are as great as you thought you were. It doesn't matter what the issue are. You are not the issue. You're not like the last mistake you made. we all are human. And I think if we can have that level of acceptance, for ourselves, then we're able to get through almost all things for sure. And then the
I,
faith as a background.
I think the support group is probably the next. It would be the next on my list. I couldn't have got to where I was through the good times and the bad times without my support group. And I have three people, Renee, Chrissy, and my husband Norm, and they are my go-to. Very different outlooks on things, very different advice at times, but all very uplifting for me. And bring me back on track. They're with me through the good and the bad, and you need that for sure.
Thank you, Carla. I really appreciate you being on here. And for those who are listening to the Leadership Heart podcast, hopefully you do share this with friends and family and whomever else. I think these messages, I know they resonate with me. They went deep. I feel almost emotional talking about some of it. And so hopefully it resonated with you as well. But thanks for being on here, Carla. I really appreciate you saying yes.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. Thank you very much, Heather.
And thanks for listening to Leadership with Heart podcast, everyone. Be well.